you're the type of person that gets your back taken and strangled immediately, then you're going to want to watch this video. So the straitjacket system was made famous by Gordon, Gary, and the team from DDS, and it's still been ridiculously successful. We're going to go through stopping strangles, stopping arm traps, stopping the follow-up triangle from the back when that fails, and stopping up the follow-up armbar so that you can always get to a guard-based position or an offense-based position outside of having your back taken and finished completely. We're always searching to contact the primary hand, which is the one that can finish me. I'm not worried about anything else at this stage. I already have my back taken. If I make the common mistake of trying to think about what the legs are doing and what the hooks are doing, and I reach down, I take my hands away, it's very easy for Juicy to start to strip, and now I'm in a lot more trouble than what I was. So the main priority here is that you attach both of your hands to his primary hand. So the way that we do that is we come up underneath for the knuckle line. Even if he does take my left hand off and strip it with his secondary, for him to punch through this is extremely difficult. I've got the very end of his lever, and that's the strongest part. Conversely, if I try and hold up somewhere where the wrist is and it's very imprecise, he can still easily drag his elbow across my chin, and now I'm in a bit of a pickle. Once I've got that, I can now start to think about where I'm going to go with the lower body. So I'm going to start to slowly turn my top shoulder down in towards his chest and misalign. Once I've done this, I've made a disconnect between my chest, my back and his chest, and now I'm in a pretty good spot. Maintaining all of the grips that I've placed in set, I'm gonna start to scoot off his bottom leg. At this stage, he's got two options. He can start to try and reclaim me by heisting and turning my top shoulder down to the mat this way and pull his knee underneath my spine and take the back. Or he can start to come up throwing a long hook over the side, and we're going to deal with both of these today. I'm going to continually try and drive my shoulder down to the mat, getting my elbow as low as possible, and when I have the ability to do so, I'm going to flare my elbow up to the roof towards my head where my head's pointing. I'm going to circle out and around. At this stage, he's no longer got my back because he's not behind both of my elbows. I'm going to place set in his shin. I'm going to start to hip escape this way. As he tries to come up on top of me, I'll put a cross frame into his hip, I'll pull my left knee to my chest, and now we're in a Rimiashi. Let's give that a go. Now we're going to look at what's most common from the underhook side. So the most common thing that's going to happen here, depending on the length of legs or the discrepancy, me and Juicy are quite different in size. He's way bigger than me. If they're good, you'll experience this in the training room, is they're going to start to go through a process of trapping your arm. So he's going to take his left hand, and he's going to start to pin my right hand to my chest, exactly, and then it's going to go below the line of my chest. He's going to pull his knee to the ceiling, and then he's going to start to throw his heel over this side. Now, this looks pretty bad, but when you realize a couple of principles, it's not that bad at all. We watched Yuri against Gordon escape this quite well. It was actually interesting to see. We're going to realize that what he wants to do is take me over my right shoulder, that direction. Before he locks his feet, I'm going to take my right hand and just cover his shin here. So when he does try and trap my arm with his left leg, it's going to be quite difficult. It's actually surprisingly hard. The strength of any arm could contain most legs here, because the way that he wants to strip and the way that he wants to put his leg is going to be into the strong part of my grip. And they're not able to rotate their leg as I'm able to rotate my wrist to strip a grip. So if Juicy has a grip over my hand like this, I just take a strip down and away where the weak part of the grip is. He can't actually do that with his shin. So it's actually quite an advantage for us here. So we keep the primary defensive hand in place to stop him from strangling us. And then when he inevitably does take us over to that other side, I'm going to try and cut my elbow up and over the top and get to the exact same position that we were just in. I'm going to continue in the same path, in the same trajectory. I'm going to get my hand over the back of his head. And once he admits defeat, the detail that I forgot to mention to you guys that I talked about in the drilling, is that the reason we go elbow behind the head is we stop any sort of back control being available because his chest is no longer contacted to my back. That means we're funneling him down a choice of pretty much coming up and salvaging top position. Once he's made that choice, you'll feel him starting to get up, and that's when your cross frame can come in, your hip escape can come out, and then you can come into a Rimiashi. So we're getting to the same position now, except from the underhook side. I used to think that trapping was one of the worst things could ever happen to you. Yes, of course, if you get your arm trapped and they lock a fully locked body triangle, Juicy may not be able to do that. And then they put you on the arm side down and your arm is literally being pinned by your own torso and his legs. Okay, you're kind of fucked. But before you get there, there's a couple things we can do. So primary defensive hand in place, he traps my arm. He's going to take me over to the other side. I'm going to cut my elbow down towards the mat before he can maintain that trap. I'm going to start to go to the exact same escape that we were before, getting my hips off his lower body, starting to go out behind the head, making him come up, going into a rumiashi. Let's give that a go. So Jake wanted me to specifically reiterate, trap my hand, this lock specifically just over the front of the shin. He found that as quite a helpful detail. So I imagine all the other white belts watching will find it as a helpful detail. And so the reason this is so effective is because he can clamp down and hamstring curl on his right side as much as he wants. But a very effective trap is when he takes his, yeah, exactly right. Now this is extremely difficult to get out of. I'm not able to just pull my elbow out of this. If I can prevent this from happening, I have some sort of chance as we go to the other side. If I decide to go there, or the natural reaction for him is to take me over there, either way, if you end up bridging and baiting them, or if they end up taking you naturally there anyway, this actually gives you the ability to free your arm. Let's say he does a really good job at trapping and I end up missing this key grip. I'm not completely finished here. Even if he does lock his ankles, what I'm going to immediately start to do is to raise my arm and raise my elbow and start to put him as high as possible. Most of the time, I still will end up taking him over this other side, but I want to sink as low as possible. Now, the natural follow-up here is that he's going to try and go towards a back triangle, and we're going to deal with that as well. So he's going to come off the side of my head here. He's probably going to take both hands onto my arm. He also wants this because he realizes that the back trapping hasn't worked, and he goes, the natural follow-up in the sequencing is to go for a back triangle. And so he's going to start to hand assist, make a quarter turn, keep a grip on my top arm, and I'm going to start to recognize that this leg has to come over to start a triangle. I'm going to start to preemptively put my knuckle line on the back here. I'm going to start to walk my hips down, out and away, pulling my elbow down to the floor. If I make the mistake of not bridging and not putting sufficient weight through my shoulders into his right leg, he will simply extract that from the back of my head and throw it over the front of my face into a fully extended armbar. And this is a bit of a problem. So to early stage prevent this, we keep this hand over the knuckle line, and I'm going to start to bridge up and over my shoulders. As long as I can plant his bottom leg down on the floor and I can keep my elbow down towards the floor as well, I'm in a pretty good spot. I'll take my hand around the front here, and then we're going to end up, funnily enough, in the exact same position that we started with. I'm going to keep going over his leg so that he extracts it. He decides to come up on top, keep my hip frame in place, a rumiashi. I block this with my hand, and as I start to turn my hips, this big toe knuckle becomes available. I start to keep my weight over his bottom leg so that I don't get armbarred, and then I'm in a really good position. Let's say I fuck it up. Let's say I don't put sufficient weight over the back of this leg, and then he starts to go into the armbar. So he's in a 3/4 juji, and that means we can't immediately turn out because he's going to be pinning my far shoulder. So what we have to do, remembering from last week, I know it's scary, but keep this arm as loose as possible. We're going to continually move our wrist so that he can't actually break us immediately, and we're going to move our thumbs along this axis. Remember, I can't turn out immediately because if I go to turn out, I'm going to get locked up with these shoulders and I'm going to get broken. So what I have to do is I have to reach for the feet and start to push them down my body, clearing my top shoulder. Now I can turn out. So remember the exact same thing from last week. I knuckle high five the top shoulder here, and I start to walk, coming to a turnout position. Then I can start to extract my arm. So let's go through both of those sequences here. Block the Ashiro, get to the knuckle line as we start to turn our hips. I don't want him going to the armbar, so I'm going to early stage prevent this. I'm going to keep my shoulder line up and over his bottom leg, and we'll end up in the exact same position with the escape that we've been doing the entire time. I'll get my shoulder line all the way up and over, I'll cross hip frame, I'll hip escape, and then get to a rumiashi. Let's say he's privy to that. I've done it to him 5 times. He goes, fuck you, I'm going to let you do it again. I come here before I can get my shoulders over there. Yeah, now I'm in some trouble. I'm going to keep this arm flaccid and continually move my hand so that he can't get an immediate break. I'm going to walk away. I'm going to start to thumb post these legs down the body, and then I'm going to knuckle high five the top shoulder. Turn my thumb down, walk over my shoulders, and then start to extract my arm from there, and I should be good to go. Let's give that a go.